Thornhill.
So I wish I could say I'm pleased to rise to speak on Bill 96, but it's a tough topic we're debating today, the Anti-Human Trafficking Act. As we've been hearing from many of my colleagues, this has been discussed before in the legislature. A private member's bill was brought forward by the member from Haliburton-Kawartha Lakes Brock, and unfortunately the government prorogued and she brought it forward again. And instead of allowing it to go through the process quickly, the government chose instead to delay helping victims of human trafficking and instead wait and draft their own government bill, which is really a carbon copy of what the member had put forward. But at least we're moving forward in a slow legislature fashion, but we are getting there. And we realize that it's maybe not quite spring weather, but it is spring outside. And people start to go walking, and I'm sure they notice raccoons skirting around in their neighbourhood, unfortunately rummaging through the garbage, and the pages are nodding and listening. That's good. It's a tough topic for the pages to listen to today. I'm aware of that. Well, just like the rats living under the beautiful city and the raccoons living in our garbage cans, there's another epidemic going on right in our beautiful city, in all our towns across this country. And as the member said, it's a $150 billion industry, and the girls get moved around and are basically, it's a modern-day form of slavery. Child sexual exploitation, according to the author of a study that I'm quoting, is the most hidden form of child abuse in North America today. And I basically want to remind everybody that human trafficking can involve children, young girls. It can also involve boys, but it is predominantly females who are subjected to it. And it's lives ruined, not just the girls or the victims themselves, but their entire families and often their entire communities. I've been speaking a few times to York Region Police. I even had a meeting with, they have a task force to address human trafficking, and they're very well recognized, and I think what they are supporting is to expand that, and that's basically what we're here today to discuss. Is not just raising awareness, which yes, this bill wants to create awareness and even have a special day in February to recognize human trafficking, but to have a province-wide task force so that when the police start to sniff around, the girls aren't, or the victims aren't immediately moved to another jurisdiction. And the members of the York Region Police Human Trafficking Team are continuing their aggressive efforts in combating human trafficking as well as the sexual exploitation of women and underage girls. And in many cases, women and young girls involved in prostitution are forced into the sex trade through violence, threats of violence, coercion, and even trickery. And when we say trickery, and I'm going to say this to the pages, it can seem like a very nice person who wants to be your friend. And my daughter even told me when I started to talk about this with her last year, she's now an adult, but she said, you know what, she never told me, but in Shoppers Drug Mart in Thornhill, a man, she thinks he was in his late 30s or early 40s, approached her when she was in the makeup section while her father was in another aisle and said, oh, you're pretty, oh, can I buy you some of that eyeshadow, oh, please let me buy it for you, you deserve it. And she was very suspicious and didn't particularly need somebody to buy it, seeing as her father was quite willing to buy her something of her choosing. And she, said no thank you, and didn't even mention it to her father, because this is the problem, is kids go and they talk to their parents and their teachers about all kinds of silly little things, like they can't find their book, or somebody said something mean to them, but something really dangerous. They're so uncomfortable that they actually don't want to make their teacher uncomfortable or their parent uncomfortable, or they're too uncomfortable to even mention it. And I just want to say to those who are listening at home that when you feel uncomfortable, please speak up, even if it's to us here in the legislature. We want to hear about it. I want to give a shout-out to Detective Sergeant Ty Trunk from York Region Police from the Human Trafficking Task Force, and their motto seems to be, if you don't look, you're not going to find it. So if you're really focused on human trafficking and this modern form of slavery, you're going to find it. And they even have up on their website to tell people to call 911 if they're afraid or feel that they're in danger, obviously, or to call, if you're in York Region, to call the York Region toll-free number. And I'll even read the number to you, 1-866-876-5423, or email info@yrp.ca. And basically, they want you to ask yourself the question, are you a victim of human trafficking? Have you met someone who promised to protect you and care for you, told you about an easy way to make money, made it sound safe and glamorous, promised you wouldn't have to do anything you didn't want to? And after a while, did things change? Does this person now control where you go, who you see, who you're allowed to talk to, force you to trade sex for money, food, drugs, a place to stay, force you to meet quotas or pay in protection money, moved you to another city, taken your money, told you that you owe him and you can't leave until you pay up? And it could be a woman, too, abusing you. Called you names, made you feel worthless, hurt you, beat you, raped you, threatened you, sold or traded you for a drug debt or for money. Tell you that he or she loves you and it will be the last time, only to do it again and again. Tell you no one will help you because you are now in the sex trade. At any time, you can be helped. It is never too late. So if you feel scared, alone, confused, and in need of someone you can trust, you have a right to be safe and respected. The police are there to help you, while the community is there to help you, even a store owner, even a waitress in a restaurant. Don't be afraid, speak up. Do you know a victim of human trafficking? Speak up, because they might need help. And one of the signs is that a victim might be unable to present identity documents, have no cell phone, lack access to their own money and resources, work excessively long hours with no or few days off, not go out unaccompanied, be branded with tattoos or the trafficker's name, exhibit signs of chronic fear, guilt, shame, distrust of authority, and the inability to make decisions, have bruises or other signs of physical abuse. Victims are alone, isolated, and they're trapped. They have no means to return home or any means to survive. The victim remains dependent on the trafficker for survival and believes the only way she can make money is through prostitution. And don't let anybody threaten you. Don't say, I'm going to hurt your little brother, or they're going to threaten that, or I'm going to do something to your pet dog. You still have to speak up. They could threaten all they want, but the fact is that you have to fight back, and they could do these things whether you fight back or don't fight back. So I want to mention that we have to help our police forces because their hands are basically tied. And by not giving them the resources they need, too often people feel that the police perhaps aren't doing enough, or the politicians aren't doing enough. But we have to work within the scope and the mandate and the regulations and the legislation that we're given. So we need to move this very quickly. I know the member from Kawartha Lake Sprock, am I saying that right? Haliburton, Kawartha Lake Sprock, excuse me, wanted even to limit the debate today because she felt that that one day, that 1 hour, somebody else is being trafficked. And I understand her frustration. I think we all share it, and on all sides of the House. But the reality is that we want to ensure that this bill moves forward, but it's done properly. And I want to just mention very quickly that the York Region Police even sent me media releases. And it must be very hard, and I want to thank everyone who works, not just our first responders and our police and sometimes our emergency rooms and community groups, but there are volunteers in communities who are trying very hard to help the victims of human trafficking. But we all have to do our part to prevent anybody from being trafficked. So sometimes we worry about what our kids are wearing, or if they did their homework, or what they're watching on TV. But let's take the time to speak to the youth in our homes, and not just to warn them not to interact with strangers. You have to have a much more in-depth conversation about what people can do to take advantage of other people in order to receive some kind of remuneration. It's a horrific way to make a living, to abuse another human being. Unfortunately, as we've seen throughout history, people have done horrific things, and we have to raise awareness in our communities. There will always be evil, and we have to stand up against it. I'm going to be sharing my time and passing the torch to the member from Sarnia-Lambton, and thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to rise.